Waalaikumsalam. Boleh dengar, Cik Afif? Okey, clear.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Aslisa.
Yeah.
Prof dah ready.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, Assalamualaikum to our honorable speakers and participants. So today we will be having our second SCE Postgraduate sharing webinar. This talk will be given by our speaker, Professor IR Dr. Nur Ashidi Mat Isa, entitled Writing an Impactful Thesis Part 2. So Prof, can we start now?
Okay, no problem.
Okay. Thank
Can
you,
you hear me?
Prof. Huh?
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, Prof.
Yes.
Can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and good morning. Thank you, Dr. Hasiza. Thank you, Dr. Isma. And also, thank you to SCCE, Postgraduate Society, for inviting me for the second part of our webinar, which is writing an impactful thesis. Okay, I will start my presentation. So I will continue from our past slides, which is we have completed until chapter 1, which is the introduction. So for today, I will proceed with okay, can you see my slide?
Yes, Prof. Can.
Okay. Now, so we continue with our second part today. So we start with chapter 2, which is literature review. So in literature review, we need to make sure that these are the 5 elements that should be what we call observed and should be made by all the postgraduate students, which is first of all, he or she must manage to divide what we call the whole research into subtopics based on the keywords in the thesis title. Because basically, that's the importance of the thesis title, because in the thesis, in the title, you must make sure that they are what we call, it can, give the overall picture about the whole thesis. So meaning that in the thesis, in the thesis title, there must be several keywords which when people or the examiner what we call read the title, he knows that these are the what we call them the topics to be covered by your research. So you must make sure that, so meaning that in your keywords too, it's related to your subtopics, and you must make sure that all of the topics too will be given priority and consideration in order for you to do the literature review. Okay, so you must review. You must do your literature review based on that subtopics, because that subtopic will support your thesis title. So meaning that there must be a related between your thesis title and also your literature review. When you divide your subtopics, it must relate to your thesis title. And the second things, you must make sure that all of your literature, you must reflect the importance of the every field. Meaning that the subtopics, so because of the subtopics, the topics that to be focused in your research, so you must make sure that the importance of that what we call every field or subtopic must be related again with your research. And the third one, you must describe the current. You must be the current and relevant. It is not just the current, but it also must be relevant. You must describe the current and also the relevant hot works. What are the hot, what we call the current works that in every subtopics. Why it is important? Because you want to show that your project is up to date, your research is up to date, it's not outdated, which is no longer what we call no longer done by researchers. So you must make sure that it's always relevant. Your thesis or your research must always relevant with current situation. And after you describe the topics or the currents, the relevant and the current, the relevant, what we call works within your area. At the end, you must make sure that you are able to identify the gaps. The gaps must be clearly highlighted in literature review, because when people or the examiner do not know actually the problem or the root of your research is not clearly presented in the literature review, so the reader or the examiner will not cannot follow what we call the other chapters of your thesis. So you must make sure that the gap is clearly what we call presented, and you must hold that research gap until at the end of your thesis. So from the beginning until the end, whatever that you try to present or you try to write down in your thesis, you must make sure that you must hold the research gap, the problems to be what we call to be addressed or to be overcome. So you must make sure that everything must be able to support your research gap. So that's the importance of research gap. Without the clear problem or without the clear gaps, so people or the examiner what we call will not appreciate your the whole thesis or the whole research. And then at the end, you must summarize the current research in that specific area, and you must highlight any gaps, as I mentioned. So to highlight the research gap or the problem statements to be addressed in your research. So these are the five what we call elements that needs to be what we call to be you have to hold this one when you do the literature review. So whatever the literature review, you must make sure that all of these five elements has been considered and has been properly addressed or properly followed in your literature review process. Okay, now okay, in literature review, as I mentioned to you, so this is just what we call the general overview on the literature review. And when you do the literature review, always at the beginning of your, I always what we call inform my student at the beginning of your research, of my student research, your knowledge about that research may be only 10%. So meaning that if because of you only have at the beginning of your research, you only have what we call the 10% knowledge, it's very general one. So that's why, first of all, you must introduce you punya research area in terms of general area in the brief. So you must introduce your research in a very general one in the brief. So meaning that how do you start your research? You must start with a very general one. So you must start with, let's say you want to focus on artificial neural networks, AAN. So you must also you want to focus on the end. At the beginning, you must know about the artificial intelligence. What is artificial intelligence in general? So just what we call introduce that one in what we call in brief, in very general one. What is artificial intelligence? Then after you know about the artificial intelligence, then you have to know, okay, what are the types of the artificial intelligence? How many groups? How many classes? Yeah, how many types? So then you have let's say you have a fuzzy logic, then you have a genetic algorithm, you have a PSO, you have an artificial neural networks. Then now you come more focused. After you know about the types, so you have to know actually what are the what we call the beauty of each type. For example, what is the beauty of the fuzzy logic? What is the beauty of genetic algorithm? What is the beauty of PSO? What is the beauty of artificial neural networks? And after you know about the beauty of those types, so you have to know what are the gaps of those types. What is actually the problem of the fuzzy logic? Why people move from, let's say, people move from fuzzy logic to genetic algorithms? And then yet, genetic algorithm also have a problem. So that's why people move to PSO. And then PSO also have a problem. So you identify the problem, then that's why we can see that now people are moving on the artificial neural network. For example, I only give the example. So from there, you can see that, okay, you start with the AI, the general one, then you focus on the classes of the general classes of the artificial neural networks, then you identify the problem. So at the end of the day, you choose to use the ANN because of it better or it produce better performance as compared to fuzzy logic, genetic algorithm as well as PSO. So it's clear that why your direction now you move toward the neural networks. So that's what we call a good literature review. You what we call you derive or you what we call you give the what we call the very clear path to the reader or to the examiner to know exactly one by one why you choose A and N, for example. So we know that okay, because of although all those classes have their advantages, but they also have the disadvantages, and because of you do what we call the clear literature review about all those what we call types of AI, then at the end of the day, you from your literature review, it seems that ANN is the best, for example. So we know that. So why you choose the ANN in the end of your research, and after that you move more focus. Now you want to focus on ANN. You have reviewed that ANN have more advantages as compared to other AI types, AI models. So now you move on the ANN. Now ANN also have several types, we have a feed forward, we have a back propagation, we have and so on. Okay, so now you have to review all those types as well, because at the end of the day you will choose only one type. For example, you want to choose a feed forward. Why you choose a feed forward? You choose the feed forward because you want, there must be some reason why you choose a feed forward. So because of maybe the back propagation have a problem, blah 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 blah, or the self-organizing map have a blah 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 problem. So although the what we call the feed forward also had a problem, which is blah 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 blah, but at the end of the day, it have less problem as compared to other types of ANN. So that's why now you focus on the feed forward neural networks. Okay. Now after you go the feed forward neural networks, feed forward neural network also have a what we call a detail of its own types, its own classes, its own groups. So you must focus on, we have NLP, we have the RBF, multi-layer perceptron, for example, we have a radial basis function and other techniques, for example. Then you have to know, so which one you want to focus. Let's say at the end of the day, you study about the NLP, you study about the RBF, you study about the techniques number 3, number 4, and so on. So at the end of the day, you compare them. So you know this is the advantages, this is the disadvantages, this is the limitation. At the end of this, okay, you see that okay, we have a problem with the RBF. This is the main problems to be focused. So at the end of the day, we know that the examiner knows that now you do a very thoroughly literature review. Because you start in general, you know the direction, why you choose ANN, and then why you choose the feed forward, and then at the end, why you choose to focus on the RBF. So that's very, what we call, well-organized literature review. So you must make sure that everything is clear, is clearly presented, and you make sure that the what we call the gaps at the end of the day is actually the main research gap to be focused in your literature review, in your research. Okay, and then after you do that by what we call the literature review from the general into the focus or to the specific or niche area, it must also, you must make sure also it cover the main keywords in your title. As I mentioned to you, the title will generally feature out the whole, what we call the whole content of your thesis. So you must make sure that every keyword is actually the main keyword, is actually the important words that must be highlighted. It must be considered and it must be discussed in detail in your thesis. So to make sure that you know what is your main keywords, and you must make sure that your literature review is actually cover the keywords. Okay, and then now you also need to relate previous study. So you have many studies. For example, let's say one topic, it can be up to 10 references or 20 references or 30 references. Now it is your skill and your knowledge in order to join them together and to make sure that what is actually the general or the common problem of those research or those works. So by having the what we call the common or the general problems, which is faced by all those studies, so that will become your research gap. Okay, so that's why you have to be able to relate from one study to another study, and you need to critiques and you need to discuss what is their problems. So basically, when you review one reference, you will know, okay, this is the problem. Okay, so the second what we call reference, this is the problem, and each this is what we call a specific problem of those references. And from those specific problems of those references, you must combine them together, you must relate them together and came out with one general or one common problem. And that problem will be your main problem for your research. Okay, so that's how from literature review, we came out or we highlight at the end of your chapter 2, your problem statement, your main problem statements. Okay, and make sure that the references is relevant and the references is up to date. And I mentioned to you, the references, examiners now is only consider the references that relate to your thesis or relate to your research work. Okay, not the references that you just want to as I mentioned the previous what we call webinar. So in order for you to increase more or to add more what we call references, so you just give one problem statement. For example, artificial neural networks has been used in many applications, for example, medical application. Okay, you give 10 references there. Robotics and automation, you have 10 what we call references there. And also, for example, agriculture, so 10 references, 10 more references. So you end up with the 30 references. So basically, this 30 references is not related to your what we call your research. So it will not be counted. So make sure that the references are relevant and related to your work. Okay, so it must be it is very important. So references must be related, and you cannot just what we call include or add any references without knowing its contribution to your thesis. Okay, one or two example is okay, but not too many. Okay, so there is a thesis which I examine. There is a references a bit more references. Most of the references, which is more than 50% of the references, are not related to the work. So at the end of the day, although the student have what we call 100 or 150, at the end of the day, only 50 is related to what we call his work or her works, and at the end of the day, it's not thoroughly done. Your literature review is not thoroughly presented. Okay, so you must make sure that only the references, the related references, is included or added or was added in your literature review. Okay, now. Okay, now I try to give you how should you do your literature review. What are the important elements in your literature review when you want to start your research with a literature review? These are the 4 terms or the 4 keywords you need to understand. The first one is the identify. You need to identify blah blah blah. The second one, to report blah 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 blah. And the third one is to critique, and the final one is to derive. So these are the 4 elements or the 4 keywords in the literature review. And you must follow the sequence. Okay, so it must start with the identification, then the reporting, then the criticism, then also the derivation. So these are the 4 elements or the 4 important keywords in the literature review process. What is the identify? Okay, identify is basically you identify your subject of interest. So when you want to start something or you want to start your research, you need to know what is your subject of interest, your topic of interest. Okay, so your topics, your subjects of interest, whatever. So you must make sure that you know what is the important keywords. Okay, you need to know what you need to identify the keywords that related to your research. So the keywords must be subject of your interest. For example, your interest in ANN. So the subject of it must be neural networks, for example. And you want to focus in cervical cancer, for example. So the second keyword is cervical cancer. So you must know these are the 2 topics of interest that you want to focus on your research. Okay? And at the end of the day, when you have these 2 or 3 keywords, these keywords, then you must combine them together in order for you to form your thesis title. So that's how you form the thesis title. You know actually what is your subject of interest, and you find the keywords, the appropriate keywords for that subject of interest, then you combine them together to build or to develop or to what we call to derive a good thesis title. And then you must make sure that whatever the subject of interest that you identify must be related to your research to be carried out. And as I mentioned to you, when you try to identify, you must start with a general subject, then focus to your niche area. Okay? As a PhD student or a master student, this is very important because we want to test your capability in the niche area, in the specific area. So make sure that before you know about the niche area, you have to know about the general subject first. Because from that subject, that general subject, it will drive you to your niche area, because you need to identify all the way from the when you do the teacher review from all the way your journey from the beginning until the end. When you reach your niche subject, you must make sure what are the problems or the hurdles to be identified or to be overcome during your journey, okay, along your journey. So you must make sure that you must start with a general subject and make sure that when you want to jump from one topic to another topic, there must be a reason why you want to choose that topic. Okay, so general one, this is the problem. So because of the problem, I jump to this topic. So because of the topic also have a several what we call subtopics area, and every subtopic area have a problem. So I want to focus in this problem. So that's why I jump to that subtopic area. And at the end of the topic, at the end of the day, the subtopics area also have, let's say, 5 niche areas. Okay, area number 1, niche area number 1, niche area number 2, niche area number 3, niche area number 4, niche area number 5. So you identify the beauty, the advantage, and the limitation, the advantage, blah, blah, blah. So from those, you can out with the general one. So because of that, I want to focus on, for example, niche area number 4, because of blah, 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 blah. So it must be clearly what we call written, or it must be clearly presented in your literature review section. Okay. Okay, now, for example, I give you example. So how do I identify? So I'm still in the identification process. Let's say my students want to, I still use the, what we call the previous example, which is classification of cervical cells, okay, using ANN, based on chromatic pattern and also nuclear membrane irregularity. Okay, so now, here, if you refer to this one, I have a few keywords. Okay, the first keyword is actually I want to know about the classification cell. So classification cervical cell is actually I refer to the general topic will be my cervical cancer. And the second thing is I want to have the what we call try to have a process to screen what we call to classify the cervical cell by using the ANN. So I need to know the automated system. Okay, so because I want to focus at the end, I want to have a classification system, which is by using ANN. So my 2 areas will be, the first one is development of intelligent system, and the second one is the case study to be focused, which is my cervical cancer. Okay, so why I need to know about the cervical cancer? Because at the end, I need to, my niche area will be chromatic pattern and nuclear membrane irregularity. So this is actually the features, which is based the features of the cervical cells. So that's why I start with the cervical cancer. I have to know what is the background, and I have to know how they screen or diagnose the cervical cancer manually and clinically. So from there, I need to know what is actually the problem. And from the problem, there will be the alternative diagnosis, which has been proposed by previous researcher. So this one is still in the literature review. Okay, so this is in literature review. So because I need to know the what is the problem of the cervical cancer. Okay, and because of that, we have a manual and clinical diagnostic system. So they also have a problem limitation. So now I move to the alternative diagnosis. Okay, so I'll start with the general one, which is cervical cancer, and at the end, I what we call stop my first subtopic until the alternative diagnosis, because I want to know what is actually the problem. So I will highlight the problem of the alternative diagnosis. So because of the problem, then I will propose a new classification system by using the ANN. Okay, so this is how you do the teacher review. From one point to another point, what is the what we call the limitation? So because of limitation, people move to this area. So this also have a limitation. So because of the limitation, people move to this area. And this is what we call the recent one, the current one. So I need to identify what are the problem here to be set as my main research gaps or so on. Okay, and then I also have the intelligence system because I want to know what's actually the problem of the current intelligence system, because I want to what we can propose a new system. So my system must be capable or better, can produce better performance as compared to the previous one. So that's why I need to start with the intelligence system, which is the automated cytology screening system. Okay, and then in this cytology screening system, I have the image enhancement. So I have to know because I want to what we call identify, investigate, and also want to process the cervical cells characteristic. So that's why I need to know what is actually the problem or the current characteristic, the problem of the current cervical cell, because of the low quality and so on, low contrast. So that's why what are people trying to do in order to highlight or to improve the quality. So we have the image enhancement. Also, and in that system, we also have the feature extraction. After the system enhance the cell, enhance the images, so the next one will be the feature extraction. Extract how people extract the features from the image. I need to know what is the problem. Is there any similar what we call similar methods or similar approach which is what we call have been applied to the cervical cell images. And at the end of the day, by combining these two, they came out with the intelligence system. So I want to know what is actually the problem of the intelligence system. Either it's because of the image enhancement problem, or because of there is not enough what we call capability in terms of visualization, or it will be a problem in the classification process itself, which is they are not using the current ANN and so on. So I need to exactly, so sorry. So now I know exactly what is the problem of the alternative diagnosis for the cervical cancer. I know exactly what is the problem of the intelligence system. Now I combine these two. I have the problem here, I have the problem here. I combine these two, and then I come out with my own ANN-based cytology screening system for cervical cancer. Okay, so I know the problem here, so I try to what we call enhance the system, the screening system for the cervical cancer, and also I try to enhance the ANN-based system. So I combine them. I will be used to be an application to apply to cervical cell. So this is example of the applied research, but I'm not using, my student is not using the basic one. He or she actually she focused on the problem of the screening system, the problem of the what we call the problem of the extracting the cervical cell, and she proposed a new features extraction and also a new image enhancement in order to extract the cervical cells, and also she proposed a new approach by using the ANN model in order to do the screen system. So although it is applied, but the engine or the real content of the thesis is not about only integrating or only plug and play, or only choose what we call the current techniques and combine them together, integrate together, and came out with the application. Now she what we call actually do the modification and propose a new techniques and then a new approaches in her research. Okay, so this is how you do the teacher review to identify. You only the first thing is you need to identify the current what we call the topic you want to focus, and you must start with the general one, and then you focus at the end. You focus on the specific on each area. Okay, so you combine them together to become a more very specific. So this is actually your specific each area. Okay. Now, after you identify, So this is my suggestion based on my what we call my identify. So this is the suggestion of your TOC for the literature for the chapter 2. Now you want to write your chapter 2. So based on the identification, so this is should be the what we call one of the suggestion of your TOC, table of content for the chapter 2. So you have two subtopic there, which is the first subtopic is about cervical cancer. And the second subtopic will be automated cytology screening system. And the third one is combination of these two, because this is the one that you want to focus. So this will be your main subtopic. So when you have a 2.2, this will be 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. Or if you want to have the introduction, so this will become your 2.2, this is your 2.3, and this is your 2.4. So these are the main subtopic. So you identify the main subtopic. Okay, so the general one is it will be the cervical cancer. The general one for subtopic 2 is automated cytology screening system, and the general subtopic for the subtopic number 3 is ANN-based cytology screening system for cervical cancer. Okay, now you have identified the first general for the first subtopic general is cervical cancer. So you just give the introduction, the background about the cervical cancer. It's not in detail because we are not in the medical field. We are in engineering field. So the background is just want to give the enough information to the reader or to the examiner to know about what is actually the cervical cancer. Okay, so to give the idea about the general idea about the cervical cancer is not in detail because we are not focusing, the literature review is not focusing on the fundamental, what we call fundamental concept. Okay, because fundamental can be found in textbooks, in Wikipedia or whatever. So we have many information about the cervical cancer. There are plenty information about cervical cancer in the website, in the books, whatever. So no need. It's no meaning for you to what we call rewrite again the information. Okay, so we don't want to know about the basic because the basic is actually not your focus, your research focus is only to give the brief introduction about the whole idea, the general area. So that's why for the background is a very brief one. Just for the introduction, okay, about the cervical cancer. And after that, because you want to focus on the chromatic pattern and also nuclear membrane irregularity, you need to, because these are the two features to be extracted from your cervical cells images. So you must make sure that there is a what we call a quite thorough information about the chromatic pattern and nuclear membrane irregularity. What is actually defined by chromatic pattern? What is chromatin? What is nuclear membrane? Okay, what is the current problem of the what we call the raw images? Okay, what is the problem of the chromatic pattern from what we call observed from the raw images? Okay, what is the problem of nuclear membrane irregularity based on the raw images provided by doctors? How doctor have a problem to read or to accept those features? Okay, so that shows the clinical problem, the manual problem. Okay, so because of people have a limitation in order to extract the chromatic pattern, also have the limitation in to extract the nuclear membrane. So that's give what we call spark or give the motivation to the what we call the previous researcher in order to have the what we call the alternative diagnosis. So that's how we flow. We make sure that we organize our literature review from the background. Okay, the background because of the cervical cancer have a problem. So that is what we call the popular test in order to reduce the cervical cancer problem, which is called pap smear. So from the pap smear, doctors will what we call observe the images of the pap smear through the microscope, and because of the images is too small or whatever, so it is difficult for the doctor to observe clearly the chromatic pattern and also the nuclear membrane. And because of that, so people move toward the alternative diagnosis, which they try to integrate or to what we call apply image processing and also artificial intelligence in order to extract those features, blah, 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 blah. So that's how we we drive the what we call the examiner from one location to another location, from one point to another point. Okay, so similar to the subtopic number 2. So this is only the suggestion. So you have the automated cytology system. So background, what is actually background is about how you define what is automated cytology system. What do you mean by automated cytology system? What is automated? What is cytology screening system? Okay, so then what are the what we call the parts or the processes or the stages involved in what we call cytology screening system? For example, for my students' problem research, the cytology screening system has 3 stages. The first one is image enhancement. The second one is feature extraction, and the third one is intelligent cytology classification system. So because of the screening system has 3 stages, so then my student have to focus on those 3 stages, one by one. So first, about the image enhancement of cytology images. So what are the current, what have been proposed by previous researcher, what has been introduced? So here, you need to know exactly the work has been done by previous researchers. So you need to know what are the problems, what are the advantages and disadvantages. Similar to the second stage. Focus on the second stage, which is feature extraction. And then focus on the third stage, which is intelligent cytology classification system. At this point, we are not focusing on the cervical cancer yet, because this is still a general one. So the cytology screening system can be done to any cell. It can be done to the what we call skin cell. It can be done for the red blood cell or white blood cell, or so on. So you can have any images, medical images that what we call introduce image enhancement, medical images introduce visual extraction, intelligent cytology classification. So now it's not focused yet on the cervical cancer. Okay, this also this is focused on the cervical cancer, but stop at alternative diagnosis. This one you focus on the cytology system, but not focus on the cervical cancer yet. So now at the end, when you have the subtopic, you combine these 2. That's why you can have the third one, which is ANN-based cytology system for the cervical cancer. You must have one specific topic for this one, because this is your niche area to be focused. Because you want to apply the ANN to develop the cytology screening system for what? For cervical cancer. So you must have a one specific subtopic for your niche area. And under this subtopic, now you need to, in detail, thoroughly review all the existing screening system for cervical cancer. This is very important subtopic. Okay, so you need to identify all the what we call the existing ones, and you need to identify what are the approaches that they propose, what are their results. Okay, if they what they compare with any other techniques or whatever. So what are their results? Okay, and then what are the advantages and what are disadvantages? So you must thoroughly do your teaching review here, because now you focus on your specific area or niche area. So at the end of the day, when you have, let's say, you have what you can identify, let's say 10 systems, existing systems, and then you need to review each system in detail, one by one. Okay, start with the first one, the first system, identify the objective, identify the problem, identify the approaches, identify the results, discussion, and so on, advantages and limitations. So now you move to the second one, you do the same. You move to the third one, you do the same until you have the 10 system. Now you will you have the what we call the complete literature review for all those existing systems. Based on these 10 systems, you already explained, you already presented the what we call the information. Now it's better for you to compare them together in terms of the teacher review. Okay, so how do you compare? My suggestion is, my advice, you summarize together all those information in the table form. When you summarize in table form, it's easy to the reader, it's easy to examiner to identify, to see, to observe the different between or among those systems. Okay, the difference of their proposed approaches, the difference in terms of their data set, what we call the difference in terms of their results. Okay, what are their advantages and what are their disadvantages. Okay, so that's how you do the what we call you identify your literature review. Okay, after you do identify, you move to the second one, which is report. Report is something for each review previous work. Your report, you do your report in paragraph. So you do a report. Report means that what the information that are stated in the journals or in the papers. Okay, you have to identify what is their problem statement. The problem statements that they're trying to focus on their paper. Okay, their problem statement, and then what is their objectives? What are their new or modified methodologies? What are the data samples that they use, and how they evaluate their methods, and what is their results? So all of this actually can be directly found in papers. Okay, the good paper must contain all of this information: the problem statements to be handled, the objective, the approach, the data sample, evaluation methods, and results. Okay, so you need to identify, when you do teacher review, you need to identify all of these elements, and then after that you summarize the report in the table form. Okay, so after you have the what we call the report, the information for all previous work, then summarize them in the table form. It's easy for the reader or for the examiner to observe the difference between one works to another works. Okay. Now, so because of these reports, now I continue with my TOC. So the suggestion TOC now will be, previously you only focus on the light blue. Okay, the background of cervical cancer, chromatic pattern. So this is actually you identify the subtopic. Your subtopic breakdown, subtopic of your chromatic pattern, subtopic of manual clinical diagnosis, subtopic of alternative diagnosis. The blue one is actually your identification. Now you want to have report. So the report is referred to the green one. So as I mentioned, briefly explain fundamental knowledge on cervical cancer. Brief, in brief. Okay, so because you had identified the background, you already identified, so you must have a review on that. But it's only a brief because this is very general. Okay, now you want to focus on the chromatic pattern, okay, and nuclear membrane irregularity. So your review must explain in detail the importance of both criteria. Why this both criteria is important? Because you want to focus on these two criteria. So you must make sure that you clearly highlight the importance of those chromatin pattern and also nuclear membrane irregularity features. If not, people or examiner will not appreciate your works. Okay, so you must make sure that because you want to focus on this chromatic pattern and also nuclear membrane, you must clearly show that these two, because there are other features can be used, the size, the color, and so on. But you want to focus on the chromatic pattern and nuclear membrane. Why? So that's why you have to explain in detail the importance of the criteria. Why you choose these two criteria and not other criteria. And please make sure that you have a related state of the art works. Okay, is there any works that use the same chromatin pattern and nuclear membrane irregularity in their works? If yes, then you have to explain clearly. What are the concepts used by there? What are their findings? Okay, what are advantages and disadvantages? Similar to the manual clinical diagnosis. So you must make sure, because you want to focus for the automated diagnosis. So you must make sure that you know what is the problem of the manual diagnosis. What is the problem of the clinical diagnosis? So that's why you need to explain in details. on the main information about the subject, their concepts, their findings, and so on. And similar to the alternative diagnosis. Because of the problem of manual clinical analysis, people move to the alternative diagnosis. So, review, present, tell to the readers what actually the existing alternative diagnosis. Okay, so in details, what are the concepts used by them? What are their findings? And then, is there any diagnosis system that focus on chromatic and nuclear membrane? Because now you want to focus on these two, because at the first subtopic here, maybe you have the alternative diagnosis for the cervical cancer that use other criteria, which is size, color, what we call the nucleus, nuclear features, cytoplasm, and so on. So this is more general, and then you must focus. Then you must focus on: is there any alternative diagnosis system that use chromatic and nuclear membrane? If yes, then you need to clearly, thoroughly explain. If no, then clearly state there is no. Okay, there is now there is the previous works only focus on other techniques, and they are not focusing on the chromatic pattern and nuclear membrane. If there is no, then clearly state. If there is what we call the existing method, then also clearly review and what are the problems. Okay, so that's how we want to make sure that people can follow what we call your literature review from the general until the focus one. Now, similar to the subtopic number 2. So the blue one, once again, is actually the identification, and the green one is actually the report. Okay, how you report? You must report. Briefly explain fundamental knowledge. If you refer to the fundamental knowledge, this must always brief. Fundamental knowledge can be found, as I mentioned, can be found anywhere. So do not just copy and paste to your thesis. We don't want to do that, because it's already what we call it's already available. Okay, publicly available. So you can have one sentence. If the reader want to know more about let's say artificial neural network, he or she can refer to reference by blah blah blah. That's all. Meaning that if the reader want to know more about the NN, he or she can refer to that reference. No need for you to present to them, for them. Okay, so make sure that you know the fundamental work must be briefly explained. Okay, now you must briefly explain about the automated cytology screening, because now you want to focus on the automated cytology screening system. Because previously, when you alternative diagnosis can be any type. It can be ANN based, it can be statistical based, it can be mathematical based, and so on. So now you focus on only the automated cytology system. Okay. Now, as I mentioned to you, let's say cytology system has three what we call three subtopics. So you focus on another subtopic 1, subtopic 2. Okay, so I'm sorry, it is another subtopic here about classification. So you need to add one more subtopic here. So sorry, I missed this one. Okay, so you have to do the same. So you identify these are the subtopics to be focused. So you must make sure that you do your report here. Okay, explain the detail on related state-of-the-art works, the concept applied, the finding, and so on. Then focus on state-of-the-art works for cervical cells images. Maybe now at the beginning you focus on any cytology images, but at the end you must focus on the cervical cell images. Similar to feature extraction, you can start with any images, but at the end you must focus on the cervical cell images, because at the end of the day, these are the techniques to be compared with your techniques, not these techniques, because they are used as different samples. You must choose what we call the techniques from the same family. So for your family, image enhancement through cervical cancer, so you must choose a few what we call techniques from here to be compared with your technique. If you propose or introduce new technique, okay, it's not from here, it must be from this point. It must be from this family, because this is still general, this is focused, so you must make sure that when you do the detailed explanation here, you have an idea. Also, you have a suggestion which of the those work to be compared with your techniques. Okay, so similar to the feature section. Then also for the ANN-based cytology screening system for the cervical cancer, this is detailed on the ANN for the cervical cancer. So you must explain that the related state of the work. Is there any? If any, then you have to explain in detail the concept used, okay, their findings and so on. Why? Because at the end of the day, when you completely design your system, you need to compare with these systems as well. Okay, so this is for the comparison of the whole system. This is for the comparison for the specific techniques. Okay, so you must know because because my student involve the application, and the application inside the application also involve the what we call the techniques. So they must be the comparison between the techniques, and because of she developed the applied system, so she must also compare with the existing applied systems. Okay, so you must know where your research direction. So it is for the technique, so you must compare with the other techniques. If you at the end of the day, if you successfully develop a system, so you must compare with what we call existing system. So that's why you need to explain in detail or do the teacher review in detail for those techniques as well as systems. Okay. After that, you must critique. Report means report is referred to report whatever the information which is can be directly obtained or observed from the techniques, from the paper, from the conference papers or journal paper and so on. Critics means you need to identify the advantages and limitations of each work. So when you read the paper, you is not only have the skill to report, to extract the direct information, but you must also have the capability to accept the indirect information. So this indirect information, we call it critique. Okay. So indirect information, what is the indirect information? Indirect information is the advantage of that system, limitation of that work. What are the advantages and what are disadvantages or limitations? Okay. After you get the advantages and limitation, then you need to identify the research step of that work. So this is actually the skill of the main skill of the literature review. Most students, when I examine or evaluate thesis, they only report, which is for me, a report is something that undergrad student can do that because all the information is clearly what we call presented in the in the paper. But the skill that undergraduate don't have is critiques, to observe the advantages, to observe the limitations, and at the end to identify the research gap. So this is what we call the critical part of your literature review, which is critique. You must be able to critique other works. And critique is not only the limitation. You must fair to the researcher. You must fair to the authors. You must critique. You must also highlight the advantages. Okay, you must highlight the advantages, and at the same time, you must highlight the limitation. The advantages to give credit to that works. The limitation because you want to identify the research gap for your works. Okay, so that's why this is the most important things of your what we call teacher review, which is critique, the third process. Okay, get the advantages, identify the limitation. From the limitation, try to design or to derive your research gap. Okay, and once again, combine your critical analysis in the table form, in the similar table form when you do the report. So the report in one side, it will be information from the report process, and the other side will be the information from your critique process. The research work by for example, by reference number 1, and then or the objective of that paper, what are the approaches or the methods introduced, and what are the results, and after that, we must have another column, which is your critique column, the advantages, and at the end, the last column will be disadvantages or limitations of the works. Okay, so you combine them together in a table form, so it's easy for the reader or for the examiner to observe the differences between those works. Okay. Okay, so back to the suggestion POC. Now, the red one is actually now is your third process, which is the critique. After you complete, you identify the topics, and then you report, you do the report and so on of the others state of the art method. Now you critique all the advantages and limitations. Okay, so people use the chromatic pattern and nuclear membrane. So what is the problems and the advantages of the clinical diagnosis based on the chromatic and nuclear membrane? What is the problem faced by the doctors? So you must critique here, because when you critique here, because of limitation, then people move to alternative diagnosis. So there is a related between the continuation between one subject to another subject, or from one topic to another topic. Topic one, okay, background, and then you talk about the chromatic pattern. Now is you move to the manual and clinical diagnosis. Okay, you explain about the clinical diagnosis, the procedure, blah 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 blah, the manual procedure, blah 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 blah. Then after that, the problems of that manual procedure is blah 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 blah. Now you present the problem. Then based on this problem, then people move to alternative. That's why people move to the alternative diagnosis. Now you can see, right, the flow. Okay. Now the alternative diagnosis. So this is the you explain about the alternative diagnosis. Okay. So this is the diagnosis. So then you focus on the chromatic. So this is a report. And what's actually the problem of those works? If they are not using the chromatic and nuclear membrane, for example, so what is the problem of their works? If they are using the size of the cell, for example, the color of the cell, okay, or other criteria of the cells, what are the problems? So critique here, okay, presented here. Okay, so this is you combine between the report and the critiques. So this is very important, because at the end of this point, okay, you stated that people are not considering the chromatic and nuclear membrane yet. They are concentrating on concentrating on the other features, but the features have the problem, blah 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 blah. So now you leave the reader, or you leave the examiner with the real problem. So this is the problem. Oh, so at the end, people or reader know, or the examiner know, okay, this is actually the gaps that to be filled or to be addressed by you. Okay. Now, similar for the what we call the automated cytology system. So for this one, for example, image enhancement, you talk about the other works, whatever. So you end up, what is the problem of those work? Let's say they are not automated. For example, the image enhancement, they involve many parameters, and those parameters have to be manually chosen by user or chosen by the students or whatever. So that's the problem, because when the user choose a wrong parameter, so the system will produce a poor performance, for example. So that's the limitation. So we know that, oh, so I know that the student actually want to have the automated parameter setting, for example. So you are not telling, you did not tell, or you did not tell the what we call the reader or the examiner about the idea yet. You only end up with those methods have a problem because they are use manual setting of parameters, and this setting parameters is too subjective and also time consuming. So you stop there. So we know that, oh, this is actually the problems or the gaps to be addressed by the students. Okay, so that's what is the that's why the what we call the critique is very important at the end of subtopic, because it will leave to the reader the real problem to be addressed by you. Okay. Okay. Now, so you do the same for the feature extraction. Okay, so you critique the works. Similar to the intelligent cytological system, you critique the works. Similar to the subtopic number 3, you critique the state-of-the-art works of the screening system, the existing ones. What are the limitations? They are not automated. For example, they use what we call statistical analysis, which is not, for example, not good if we are using the non-linear system and so on. So that's the examples of the what we call the limitation. So we know that you want to focus in that area, so you want to propose or introduce a new techniques that to overcome or to reduce the problem. Okay. And then at the end of the day, there must be the final elements in your teacher review, which is derived. What is derived? At the end, you must highlight the common research gap of those works. And this research gap will be your research gap. Okay, so you have, let's say for the system, I give you example for the system. Let's say you have 10 systems. Okay, you already report the system approach and so on. Then you know the limitation of system number 1. You do the same for the system number 2. You identify the problem. You move to the what we call system number 3. You identify the problem, and now you have 10 problems, 10 different problems. Because each problem we have, we go to specific to one system. So every system will have their own limitation or problem. So now you need to have another skill where these 10 problems, you need to combine them and you come out with a one common research gap, which to be set as your research gap. Okay, so as I mentioned once again, if you analyze, if you review 10 systems or maybe more, so you already identify the specific problem or the specific limitation of those systems. Now for the fourth one, you need to have another skill. You need to combine those problems, those specific problems, combine them together to come up with one what we call general common problem to become your research gap. Okay, so this is what we call by the derivations. So you need to derive based on those problems, derive one research gap to be whole by you from from the beginning of your research until the end of your research. And whatever that you did, you must refer to that research gap. So this is very important because derivation or research gap will show the direction of your research work. Okay, so whatever the information about the methodology, about the research, about the discussion, examiner and readers will point back to your research gap. So you must clearly make sure that this is your research gap to be focused. Okay. Suggestion. So you have the speaker. So we have the until here is a critique. So similar to this one, anti-critique. And for the alternative diagnosis, when you critique, then for this one, you set one research gap after this review. Why? Because you want to focus on the chromatic and nuclear membrane. Because there is no works as of now, what we call use the chromatic and nuclear membrane as the criteria. So you want to use that. Okay, and then you know that you have referred to the previous one. It seems that your what we call the chromatic pattern and nuclear membrane is very important, but it is not yet used by other techniques. So that's why this is your research gap. Okay, so similar to the automated cytological system, because you want to enhance what we call the cytology images. For example, the existing works for the image enhancement techniques, all those parameter setting are manually done. So you have what we call clearly discussed here. So now set one sentence that become your research gap. Okay. Similar to the feature extraction, set one research gap if you want to focus on this one. Also for the intelligent cytology classification system, also set one research gap here. Okay, and because you want to apply, want to develop the application system, so you must also set research gap. What is the problem of the existing systems? Okay, so to derive research gap is only 1 or 2 sentences, not more than that, because you already clearly discussed about the limitation and advantages here. So at the end, you just end up your paragraph, your dead paragraph, with 1 or 2 sentences, highlights the main research gap to be focused. Okay, and for my student, because there are 4 objectives, so that's why if you refer to this TOC, she have 4 or more what we call research gap. Number 1, number 2, number 1 here for the alternative, number 2 here for this image enhancement, number 3 is for, number 1 is for the alternative analysis, number 2 is for the image, number 3 is actually for the feature extraction, number 4 is actually for the what we call cytology screening system, combination of this one and this one. Okay, so that's why at the end of the day, because she has 4 research gap, that's why she came out with the 4 research objectives. 1 objective specific to 1 research gap. So you must make sure that how many objectives that you want to set. If you want to set 3 objectives, so make sure you have 3 clear what we call a research gap. Okay, so this must be related. So research gap and research objective must be together. Okay, 1 research gap, 1 objective. If you have 2 research gaps, there must be 2 objectives. Okay. Okay, this is the example. Okay, so for a literature review, this is example of the report. Okay, my student report about the RLBHE. So this is he used the threshold value for the intra-class variance. Okay, and then first separate the object, so separate the object from the background. So this is the approaches, okay, by Zuo et al. And then obtain the minimum absolute mean value. So this is also what we can obtain directly from the paper of Zuo. So this is what we call a report. Similar to the second one is Shanmugavadivu. Okay, so what are the approach used? They use the PSO. Okay, PSO used to find the optimal constraint, which is capable to maximize blah 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 blah. So this is actually, this information is directly can be obtained from the paper. So this is what we call a report. Okay, now then you have to critique because of the Shanmuga, the Vidu, blah blah blah. So however, there is a common shortcoming of those techniques. Okay, what are the problems? They what we call the recursive R is always an issue because R is manually set. So you explain what is the problem of the R. So this actually is not, you cannot get this information directly from those paper. Okay, so this is the skill that you need. So because of this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so because of this 1, 2, 3, 4, these 4 papers, so you already know the approach by one. So this is the common problems that what we call faced by those researcher. Okay, so you explain the problem, so you critique. Okay, so now you combine together the report and also the critique. And then after you do for all the what we call researchers and existing works and so on, so try to summarize them in a table form. So table form, we have the techniques used. Okay, so these are the author that's called what we call focus on the historical segmentation. So what is the advantages? This is advantages and this is disadvantages. So the advantages, this one is difficult to find the optimum threshold, difficult to find the optimum threshold, difficult to generate novel idea, okay, might increase computational burden. So this actually, this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this actually indirectly you obtain from these references. So this is actually the skill that we need. You know you know what are the limitations, because from this limitation, you will derive your own research gap. Although there have been many techniques have been done in order to improve what we call image enhancement, which is use histogram segmentation, histogram clipping, or simplification, but still they have a problem. So now it is your skill to highlight what are the problems and what are the common problems. Okay, maybe the common problem one is actually they are manually set the parameter. The second one is computational burden and so on. Why? Because the complexity is there. So at the end of the day, so based on this, so you came up with your own research gaps, and make sure that your research gap is actually within your scope. Because at the end of the day, if you highlight the research gap, and at the end of the day, your results and discussion fail to address the research gap, so meaning that your thesis is not properly presented. Okay, so whatever the research that you want to derive, make sure that your what we call your results and your discussion support that research gap. If you think that your research gap now, you first, let's say you set one research gap, which is very you focus on research gap manually. The problem is manually set parameter setting, and the second one is a competition burden. But after you do the analysis, blah blah blah, you do the works, you do the methodology, you test with data samples, whatever, you only can show that what we call, you can able to improve the performance by using the automated parameter setting. But the computational is higher as compared to the previous one. So in that case, you need to revise again your research gap. So now your research gap only focus on manual parameter setting. Remove the competition burden, because your what we call your results and your discussion is not properly address your research gap at the initial research gap. So you need to revise your research gap. Make sure that whatever that you obtain from the methodology and result discussion chapters is that address your research gap. If not, then you need to revise again, because your research gap also will will be what we call give the overall picture about your scope. Okay, so if you want only focus on the performance, then only focus on the performance. If you want to focus on the computational time, then you focus also the computational time. That's why when you write a paper, a journal paper, whatever, when you only, let's say you have one method which is better than the existing one, and but also your computational burden is actually higher as compared to the previous one. So that's why in your what we call your report or your journal's paper, you do not present the you submit the paper to the reviewer will comment, where is the computational burden? Okay, what is the computational time? Why you did not analyze the computational time and so on? So basically, it is not what we call the negative comments. The thing is now, that's why in your paper or your thesis, you must make sure that your scope, okay, you must highlight your scope. If your scope is only focused on the performance, then you must make sure that your scope is only focused on performance, and you are not focusing the optimization of your system. Okay, you are not optimization of your system in order to reduce the complexity. You only focus on your what we call the performance, the improvement of the performance. So that you must clearly set the scope. Okay, so in that case, if you get that kind of what we call comments from the reviewer, or in your thesis from the examiners, what you can do is you can include the computational analysis, but because of your computational analysis is what we call is poorer as compared to the previous one, you must be able to clearly discuss why your system is actually what we call need more computational time as compared to the others. Okay, so when you have a capability to what we call to discuss that, meaning that you know exactly, you know in details your work. Okay, the good researcher is not only able to highlight what we call the advantages or the beauty of his or her works. He or she also must have the capability to evaluate, to discuss about the limitation. Because research is something continuous, is always continuous. You don't want your what we call your research to be stopped here. You want your research to be improved or to be further explored by other researchers. It's not by you, it's also by other researchers. So meaning that if you are able to highlight both advantages and limitations of your work, this is actually a very good researcher. So I always what we call advise my students, because in chapter 5 you will have conclusion and future works. Before you introduce or you suggest the future works or the future approach, you must know exactly the limitation of your work. Without the limitation, you cannot what we call suggest future works. So that's why a good researcher must know what we call the beauty, advantages of his or her works, and also the disadvantages or limitation of your work. But there must be what we call the what we call the percentage is more towards the advantages lah. It means that if you do the discussion, 80% must focus on your advantages, another 20% focus on your limitation. Okay, if you have what we call only 20% advantages and 80% of disadvantages, you will have a trouble lah. You had a problem during your Viva Voce. So you must also know the limitation, but limitation is only 20% of your discussion. More focus more on, of course, you have to focus more on your advantages. Okay, so we want to know, because of the way that you do your research, basically you will face your problem. So you have to know basically what is the limitation. Okay, so that makes you a very or good or excellent researcher. So try to have both. Okay, okay, so this is the revelation of research gap based on those problems, blah blah blah. So the conventional histogram, though, is capable to improve the image contrast, it often introduces undesired visual artifact and changes the mean brightness. So from those techniques, so my student came out with what we call one research gap, one common research gap, because those histograms have the introduced undesired visual artifacts. Okay, what are the other problem? Difficult to obtain the optimum threshold value. Okay, is there any problem? Okay, overclipping might result in detail loss. Another problem, okay, they are not, it's always challenging to generate and take into consideration of knowledge of human expert. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the 4 problems to be addressed by student. And she managed to have one technique which can, what we call, overcome these 4 common problems. If you only have the techniques, only cover 1, 2, 3, so please remove the 4th one. If only cover 1 or 2, remove the 3rd and the 4th one. So make sure that it's always tally and relate to your methodology, results, and also discussion. If you make sure if your discussion or result is not fulfill your requirement, so please revise your research gap. Okay, so that's how you make sure that your research is actually what we call the organization is clear from research gap before you move to the methodology and also research and discussion. Okay, this is the common mistakes. In the review, this is the common mistake. The first one, there are too much information on fundamental concept. As I mentioned, this is not a textbook. This is not a textbook. This is the thesis. We want to know about your research. We want to know about your methods. We want to know about your research. We don't want to know about the fundamental concept which can be obtained, is available, commonly available in the internet or books and so on. So please make sure. Okay. And then the second one, focus on the reporting state of the arts only, with no or less critical analysis. When you focus on reporting, it will not show your capability as a PhD student. We want to know your capability as a PhD student, your skill, your knowledge. So that's why you need to focus on report and critique. And you fail to highlight your research gap. After you critique, after you report, actually, what is your research gap? The research gap, the gaps or the problems to be addressed in your research work. Okay, so this is the common mistake. Make sure that you reduce the fundamental concept, the fundamental information. Make sure that you have both report and critiques, and make sure that you derive your research gap, highlight your research gap. Okay, so this is the importance of the literature review. Now we move to the methodology. So methodology, you after you get the problems, the research gap, so now you need to propose the methodology, which is in general to answer your research gap. Whatever the methodology to be proposed, it must refer to your research gap and must refer to your objective, because based on your research gap, you will derive your objective. And you describe describe it in the flow chart first. This is the first step. Describe in the flow chart because you want to discuss them in a general. How your ideas, how your approach, your proposed idea or your proposed approaches in general can answer your research gap and objective. Okay, so the best thing is by using the flowchart or by using a block diagram or by using another features, another what we call visual aids and so on. Okay, so you describe in general. Okay, because of the what we call, for example, the membrane, the nuclear membrane in reality cannot be seen clearly through the microscope by naked eyes. So in our system, we want to have image enhancement techniques which can highlight those what we call those edges clearer as compared to the background, for example. So that's what in general. How do you want to do that? That one will become to the next stage. Okay, detail in the methodology in detail. The first one, you must, as I mentioned to you, methodology is something that if you want to sell something, let's say you are the salesman or salesgirl, you want to sell a pen, for example, to your from door to door, from house to house, for example. So at the beginning, you will knock the door. You give salam, assalamualaikum. If anybody, good morning, good afternoon. So this is what we call a general. So I'm ASHIDI, for example. I want to sell you what we call to sell you a pen, for example. This pen is have a blah blah blah. So that's the in general. How the function, how the pen function. So it will come in details. So after the what we call the owner of the house allowed you to come in, and then now this is time for you to present in details what is actually the pen for, what is what we call the facilities, or what is the beauty, what is the advantages of your pen, blah blah blah. Okay, the features and so on. So now you have to describe the methodology in details. Okay, now you need to describe what in details your proposed concept, your proposed idea. If you have the algorithm, then you need to explain the algorithm step by step. Use concept 1H, 5Ws. Okay, one husband, 5 wife. Okay, so what is one husband? H is how, and what is wife? What is why, what, who, where, and when. Okay, if you think that when you present your methodology, if you can answer these 6 elements, then your methodology is complete. Okay, how do you want to implement it? Why you need to implement it? What are the equations used? If you want to use who, then you lah. If you not, then remove. Where you want to use it? Is it for the image gray level, or what we call color image or gray level image? When do you want to use it? Okay, so you must make sure that you have these 5 elements during your explanation about your methodology. And then please use visual aids or illustrative materials. For example, flowcharts, diagrams, figures, pseudocodes during your discussion. After you explain whatever, let's say you have the algorithm, You explain one by one. Step number one is blah 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 blah. Number two is blah 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 blah. So at the end, you must end up with a studio code. When you give a studio code, it's clear to the examiners. Oh, this is how you implement your methodology. We don't want to see your source code, your real source code. No need to include your real source code. We only need your studio code. Because from studio code, we know exactly the flow of your algorithm, the flow of your methodology. Okay, so we evaluate you based on that flow. And then you need to support your proposed methodology theoretically. For example, if you modified one equation, why did you modify the equation? Based on which concept? It's not something that is a ilham that you get from what we call from your from Allah or whatever. Okay, suddenly when you wake up in the morning, oh, I get the ideas, whatever. Okay, we don't want that, because we although you get that idea after you wake up, but you must support it with a theoretical what we call explanation. Okay, so we don't want something that, okay, in my technique, I introduce a new equation, which is E equals to M blah 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 blah, for example. So where did you get that equation from? Is there any fundamental, any basic what we call knowledge to support your what we call your argument? So that's why the importance of your literature review. Because based on literature review, you know exactly the problem, and from the problem that you support. That's why, okay, I introduced this one because in the previous what we call works, they use, for example, I give what example lah. They use the slope, for example, the slope for between the edges and also the what we call the region of interest, and also the slope between, or the difference between the cytoplasm area and also the nucleus area, in order for you to get the edges between the cytoplasm and also the nucleus. Okay, so that's what we call the equation, or the concept used by previous work. But you think that it is not enough. You want to have another criteria. For example, that you want to have the what we call the slope, the pattern of the what we call the pattern of the histogram of your intensity level between the nucleus and also the cytoplasm. So based on the pattern, combined together with what we call the previous concept, then you came out with a new concept. So there must be some reason behind that. Then how do you want to show that? Now you have the pattern of the histogram. You can have example of the pattern, which what we call the edges between the cytoplasm and also the nucleus, and also another what we call another histogram, which is only the histogram of the cytoplasm itself, not the comparison between it. So from there you can see that the pattern is different. So that's why you introduce that what we call theory. So that's how you support your what we call your methodology, your proposed methodology, theoretically. Okay, so highlight the contribution towards new knowledge. As I mentioned to you, because of based on this observation, so it's we introduce a new approach, a new idea in order to overcome. So we know that, okay, this is actually the new knowledge introduced by you. Okay. After that, when you complete the methodology in details, you one by one, you know the best your methodology. Even your supervisor did not know your methodology in detail. You are the best person to discuss your own methodology. So make sure that you clearly and in detail you highlight the methodology, because your supervisor is actually the can only give you the ideas, what we call the advice or the suggestion, how do you want to present. But in the real methodology is actually you are the master. Okay, it's not the what I call, you are the C4 of that methodology. Okay, now describe. After that, when you have the methodology, you have a complete methodology in detail. So next one is you must make sure you describe the data samples. Okay, who are the samples? If you refer to medical, let's say you involve patients. So who are the what we call the samples, or what are the samples if you refer to the only the images? So what are the samples? And then how did you identify it? Okay, how do you identify the patient to be used for your survey, for example, the images to be used? How do you identify? Because you have many samples. So what which samples do you want to use? Identify why you want to use that. How? Okay, and then describe the tools. Describe the tool is important because you want to know the reliability. Either your data is reliable or not. Sometimes you use a wrong tools. Okay, is your tools or your software whatever is what we call a standard one. A standard, if it is standard, then used by other techniques, then meaning that your data sample is acceptable. That's why you need to describe in details. If you are use a real case study, then you need to describe in details the samples, what are the samples, how you identify the samples, how do you want to, what are the tools used in order to gather the samples, to capture the sample. So all of this information is very important to make sure that your data is reliable and acceptable. Okay, and then you also must describe the measurement analysis. This is already described. What are the qualitative and quantitative analysis will be used? Okay, if you want to use the observation, what to be observed? Okay, in general, what to be observed? If you are using a quantitative analysis, let's say you use a PSNR, you must make sure why did you use a PSNR? Why you choose a PSNR? Why didn't you choose another measurement? There is a lot of measurement. We have of S4, we have the accuracy, we have so. But why you focus only on the PSNR? So there must be a reason. In any analysis or in any measurement that you choose, you must make sure there is a reason behind that. It's similar. If you want to choose method 1 to 5, for example, to be compared with the method, why did you choose those methods? Okay, let's say you choose method 1, method 2, method 3, method 4, method 5. Method 1 and method 2 is a very the old one, which is 1970 or 1960. Only the number 3, number 4, number 5 is the current one, which is 2019, 2018. So if you use this one without, if you use the first and the second references without explanation, so examiners will be wondering why did you compare your technique with the old one? There must be a reason. So you must clearly state there why you need also to compare your techniques with the technique 1 and technique 2. Although they are old, which is in 1970 or 1960, but you still want to compare with your technique because these are the basic of your techniques. Meaning that you use these two basics in order to improve their techniques. So to make sure that the improvement is work, so that's why you need to compare with those techniques, although they are old. And you compare with technique number 3, number 4, and number 5 because they are the current one, they are the latest one, and they are have been proven as the best technique so far, for example. So it's fair. It's fair why. So we make sure that every techniques, every methods, every sample that you use must be a reason behind it. Okay, so make sure everything is clearly presented in your methodology section. This is the heart of your techniques. Make sure that whatever that your methodology, you must reflect back to your research gap and also to your objectives. Okay. Okay, so what is methodology? Methodology is a systematic is a theory analysis, okay, to be applied to your field of study. It comprises of theoretical analysis, okay, so that's why whatever is you must support whatever your methodology with a theoretical analysis and discussion. Okay, so it must have a paradigm, it must be theoretical model, cases, okay, qualitative and quantitative techniques and so on. So they must be clearly presented. If involved equations, there must be equations, statistics question. This must be clearly what we call explained. If you have a theoretical model, so what is the model? phases, what are the stages involved, and so on. So it must be clearly, but now your methodology is only up to the theoretical aspect. It's not up to the result any. So whatever the support, it must support within the theoretical what we call explanation, because you are not presenting your result yet. So you cannot use the words such as the sentence such as, okay, I propose this one because my result shows that blah blah blah. No, you cannot use that in the methodology because you are not present your results yet. Okay, I'm using this equation because of based on blah blah blah. It shows that this equation is not the original, the initial equation is not what we call did not consider blah blah blah. So in my case, I want to consider blah blah blah. So that's why I include blah 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 blah. So methodology is more on the theoretical. It's not about the results yet. Okay, you cannot support whatever your choose of the equation and approaches based on your result, because you are not we are not yet in the result discussion phase. We are still in the methodology. Okay. Okay. Now, so this is the methodology. So this is actually how do I what we call supervise my students or monitor my students. So after they do the literature review, they will identify the research gap one by one. So the first research gap, so they develop the method. Okay, they get the results and analysis. So I will evaluate the results. If I think that it is up to the PhD study, then they can have the second one. If not, they have to improve. So this is whatever the point is, I want you to make sure that you and your supervisor actually can work together at this point, because only your supervisor knows either your contribution is up to the postgraduate study or not. If your PhD is up to PhD or not. If not, you need to improve the methods. If okay, then try to prepare manuscript. If your manuscript is accepted and published, then meaning that there is a new contribution. Published is not in the conference; it's a journal paper. Okay, so this is the roles of your supervisor. Make sure that your supervisor knows your work, and make sure that supervisor appreciate your works. Appreciate means your supervisor know that your work is actually up to the your PhD or your master's study. If not, then you need to improve the method. So this is what we call the processes need to be aware by both lecturer and also supervisor and also students. Okay, whatever it must start with the teacher review. Okay, then after you complete one gap, you must update your teacher review, because after you complete one gap, it must take about 6 months or 7 months. So now it's a time for you to update the teacher review. Otherwise, I'm afraid that your second research gap will be outdated. So you update the teacher review, make sure that your second research gap is still relevant. Okay, so if not, then you need to revise your research gap. So do the same process. Okay, so these are the processes. As I mentioned, both supervisor and student must make sure or must work together in order for the students to what we call develop or have a very good thesis. Okay. Okay. So methodology in basically based on the research gap, student may design the hypothesis, then design the overall concept as I mentioned to you. Introduce yourself first before you want to sell your pen. Okay, so in general, so who are you, what are you trying to do here, blah blah. Okay, and then divide the proposed method into several stages, because from the flowchart we can see that it can be divided into several stages, and design is stage one by one in detail. Test and validate each stage. If your stage okay, complete, then continue to the next stage. Student must clearly define the results and output of each stage. And then good supervisor should be able to comment on those results and outputs. They must work together here in order to make sure that your methodology is up to PhD or master level. Okay? Yeah. So these are the processes that need to be aware. Okay. So your methodology must contribute to new knowledge. You must know the novelty. You must know the difference between new, modified, hybrid, and integration. I think I have explained in detail about these four categories. Okay? And then because we are the engineering, it must give impact to engineering field. And it could be applied to real world cases. So that's why in methodology, in data sample, I always ask my students is on not only use the standard or the what we call the public data set, they also might have to use their own real world case samples in order that your techniques, whatever, can be applied to, can give impact to your engineering field. Okay? And then your methodology at the end must be strongly supported by your result and discussion. And there must be a detailed performance comparison. How many methods used to compare? Why did you choose those methods to be compared with your methods? Do you do the comparison? Are the comparison fair? Fair, meaning that you use the same techniques, you use the same analysis, you use the same data, and so on. There must be a fair comparison. And there must be a clear discussion. Discussion, report and discussion, they must, it is the different report, I will focus this one in my next slides. And then you need to able to link with your research gap and objective. So your new knowledge must be able to answer your research gap and achieve your objective. Okay, so by able to link these two, then we can say that you already contribute towards new knowledge. If you cannot able to link, then contribution towards knowledge is not here. Okay, so important issue: always update your literature review to make sure that your techniques is not outdated. And then please try to find the difference between new, modified, hybrid, integration, because we want to identify the level of your contribution. This one, supervisor role is very important. Supervisor role is very important. Dr. Isma, Dr. Haniza, make sure that you know the level of contribution of your students, okay? And then research ethics.
Okay, Prof.
Implement the methodology honestly, okay? So you must make sure that all those your methodology you implement it honestly. You are not copying from others, because we are not, as examiner, we will not check your full source code. Whatever that you presented in your thesis, we assume that this is correct and true. So this is the research ethic. Make sure that everything is properly presented and it is not from other works. Okay. Okay, this is the example. So how describe the methodology in general? So this is overall general idea. So first we have the cervical cell, then we crop the nucleus, then we convert the image into color to grayscale. This is next we do the image enhancement, then we blah 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 blah. So this is the general what are the processes involved. Now this is stage 1, stage 2 will be detailed out later. Okay, so this is about the general. So we know that this is the overall picture of the student research. Okay, after that, discussion, detailed discussion, but now this initial idea. So you want to propose the penalty driver, for example, this is to be proposed. So what is the penalty driver? Okay, so in details, initial idea. Okay, then give the detailed discussion. So what are the detailed one? You want to use the absolute difference between original and smooth. Then you partition them into several membrane quanta. We have a 0.1, range 0.1 and 0.2. So this is detail. Previously it's a general idea. So now it is a proposed in detail. Proposed idea in detail. Okay. Next, if you have the main algorithm, try to include them in details. Equations, if you have equation, what are the equation? Okay, and then the RAT ratio, the ratio is divided into 4 range, namely blah, 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 blah. Okay, so details. Then, these supported materials, see the codes, graphical punya illustrations. So all of this actually give the what we call to support your explanation. So the reader and the examiner will have a clearer picture about your methodology. Okay. Here, this is the expected outcome. Theoretically expected outcome. It's not based on your result yet. It's expected outcome. So the final output of this process is the first feature expected from nucleus, which is the nucleus membrane equality represented by PD. If majority of the points, say this expected outcome, if majority of the points of the original nucleus, blah, 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 okay, so it means that it falls in the average greater than 0.1. Okay, as a result, the computer PD will be relatively large, indicating that the irrigating equilibrium is high. So this is the expected outcome based on your methodology. So this is actually the expected. If you have a high PD value, then it means that your nuclear membrane is not regular. Okay, so this is expected outcome. It's not yet proved by your results and discussion. It's still based on the theoretical theory inspection or support by your theory. Okay. Okay, then you describe the data sample. What are the samples to be used? Where do you get the samples? How many samples? Stage 1, stage 2. Okay, so where you get the samples? How many samples and so on. Okay. Then once again, so still this is a description of data sample. 600 cells, 200 from what we call diagnostic class, and then blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then describe the measurement methods used. I have a qualitative. So what to be observed? I use the survey. Survey among what? How many human expert? 20 human expert. So I have a survey form. So how do I design the survey form? I will give the example. So this is example of the survey form. Okay. So this is the example of the survey form. So this is for the qualitative analysis, because we need the doctors to observe manually. Okay, observe manually those what we call those our image. Okay, so that's why we have a survey form. So you need clearly describe the survey form here. What are the information included in survey form? Okay, and then move to the quantitative. Quantitative is for example, you have the accuracy, you have PSNR and so on. So this is more on the statistical analysis. Okay. Then common mistake, okay, include description of algorithm of existing methods. We don't want that. Okay, we want your techniques. If you modify, then yes, you can have the existing method, but you must focus more on the modification. Okay, contribution is not properly highlighted. There is no flow chart, diagram, figures, okay, to support your description of methodology, because it will be a very dull. It's very dull punya. If it's only text, what is its methodology is 100% text, it will be very boring. What we call explanation. Try to include flowcharts, diagram, figures, because it will, it will boost the energy of the reader in order to continue reading your thesis. There is no updated literature review. Okay, your research could be not relevant anymore. Okay, so try to update your literature review regularly. Okay. Okay, my question, do we need to include detailed algorithm of the existing methods in either in chapter 2 or chapter 3, which are used for the performance comparison with the proposed one? Let's say you have your own techniques. Okay, you have your own techniques. You want to compare with technique A and technique B. Do we need to include the detailed algorithm of technique A and technique B? Okay, no need, because it is already published. So you just give the reference. If the reader or the examiner want to know more about that, he or she will what we call refer to the references. So no need to include the existing methods. Okay, only include your methods. You only want to know about your contribution. We don't want to know about others because they have already been published. So we don't have any more. We cannot comment them. We want to comment you. We want to give our feedback on your works. So that's why we only want you to present your works. Okay. Okay. Result and discussion. Okay. Now, after you do the methodology, now you must use the standard procedure. Okay. So you have to know the standard procedure used, which must be similar to the other works, because you want to do what we call the comparison with them. So you might use the standard procedure as used by other works. And please get the references to support the procedure. Either your procedure is acceptable or not, try to support you with the reference. If you have a reference to support, then your procedure is okay, meaning that your results and your discussion is accepted because you follow what we call the standard procedure of analysis. Okay, you must perform both qualitative and quantitative analysis is possible, because some of you can only have a quantitative, it's okay. But for the image or whatever, I think you can have, best for you to have both analysis, qualitative and quantitative, and both must be support each other. Okay, and then as I mentioned, use both benchmark data because you want to compare with the existing method, and you must use also the real case data set because we want to know your impact, the impact of your works to the engineering field. Okay, because we want to know the applicable of your research to the engineering field. And make sure that you compare your performance. We don't want to have what we call the short sendiri syndrome. What is short sendiri in English? So I think your supervisor will know what is short sendiri. Okay, so we don't want you to claim that your techniques is good without you compare with others. So you can only claim that your technique is good after you compare with others. Without the comparison, you cannot claim that your technique is the best. Okay. Okay. So ensure fair performance comparison, as I mentioned to you. Otherwise, the comparison cannot be is not accepted. Okay. So fair comparison meaning that fair what we call similar environment. Okay. Similar situation, similar data sets, similar analysis, everything is the same. Okay. How does your student obtain the result of CD? How do you obtain the results from other works? Either you take it from the primary references, meaning that you email the authors. Okay. You email take it from the primary method, meaning that you make sure that the number and types of data, analysis and evaluation, as well as control environment are the same. So make sure that you clearly you get the detail of the performance analysis done by the authors. So you must use the same number of data, you must use the same type of data, you must use the same analysis, you must use the same evaluation, and you must use the same control environment. Okay. But if you take it from the primary, your limitation is you only applicable for the data set used in the references. If you have your real case study, you cannot, because you will use a different case study, so meaning that you cannot use you cannot compare with them. Otherwise, it's not fair. Or you can obtain the source code from the authors. If you obtain the source code from the authors, you email the authors, you get the source code, then you can implement it, and then here you can use a different types of data set because you already get the what we call the root the real source code, so you can use a different data set. But if you don't have the source code, you cannot use the different data set. You have used the same data set as used by the authors. Or the third one, you can code by yourself. You can have your source code, you can use your own source code of the previous method, but you must make sure that when you run the when you run the source code, you must obtain the same results. If your result is not the same as reported by the authors, meaning that your source code cannot be used. Okay, so there are advantages of using the if you code yourself, so you can improve the knowledge in identifying the technical weaknesses of the methods, and you can you can do the performance comparison with any types of data sets. Okay, so this is advantage, but you must make sure that it takes time lah. It's a quite what we call time consuming because you need to code it by yourself. But before you do, you must make sure that you produce the same results as the same as what we call the previous one. Okay, so this is how you do the comparison. This is how the three techniques that you can do the comparison. Either you take it from references, or you obtain the source code from the author, or you code by those by you yourself. Okay. Okay, so you have the result must have both text and illustrative materials, table and figure. Okay, then use text to guide the reader through the key results. Okay, the result which answer the investigated research gap and objective, and each table and figure must be referenced in the text, and the key result of each table or figure must be highlighted. So when you have the text and the illustrative materials, based on the tables and figure, you explained about the tables and figure, and make sure that whatever the what we call the results is, you must refer back to your text and also your tables and figures. Okay. Okay, so this is an example of qualitative results. Okay, you have to show your techniques, compare with other techniques. Your techniques compare with other techniques. Okay, so this is the survey form. The survey, what we call evaluate by the qualitative evaluation by the expert system. So how many of them what we call give 5, how many are give 1, and so on. So we can see from here that when the what we call the doctors or the expert do the survey and observe manually the cell, what are the opinions. So this is, we call it a qualitative because it's more on the observation of the what we call human. Okay, and then this is a quantitative results. Okay, so I have the quantitative results. For example, this one. So this is the techniques, the proposed technique, and this is the previous one. So I compare them. Okay, so I compare them together. Okay, so these are, you must make sure that enough information, enough comparison. Okay, so make sure it's a thoroughly do the what we call, you need to thoroughly do the comparison lah. Okay, so if you have more, then better you have more techniques to be compared with your. Okay, okay, this is also another quantitative results in graph form. Okay, this one in the table form. This is example in the what we call graph form, or the illustration is under diagram and features and so on. Okay, this is the common mistake for the result and discussion. Figure, graph, diagram, table too small, low quality. Make sure that you have everything is clear. If you want to use a pattern, the pattern different to compare between one techniques and what we call one technique and another techniques, the quality must be superb. Otherwise, the reader or the examiner cannot observe the pattern difference between your techniques and other techniques. Okay, so tables must be what we call the size, the font might be clearly written by readers. Okay, make sure the quality and the size is appropriate and suitable. You only report the results without technical discussion. Report the result means from table 1, it can show that what we call okay, I give you example later. Okay, so you only report the results without a technical discussion. Okay, you only provide qualitative or quantitative, because if you have both, then both can support each other. So for me, better to by hook or by crook, try to have both analysis, because only one analysis, we have two analysis, so they can cover each other. So qualitative and quantitative are not matched. Okay, they cannot what we call do not support each other. Performance comparison are not fair. So once your performance comparison are not fair, the whole thesis will not be acceptable. Okay, fail to conclude the discussion in order to ensure the research gap and objective has successfully been answered. Okay, at the end of your what we call research discussion, you must make sure that your research gap and your objective has successfully been answered. Meaning that whatever, as I mentioned to you, whatever is your results and your discussion must point, at the end of the day, must point to your research gap and objective. Okay, discussion. Okay, now the important thing is I want you to differentiate between the report stage and discussion stage. So this is to differentiate between PhD student and master student and undergrad student. Okay, report stage meaning that the information and the results which tabulated in your tables or shown in your figure, you report. We can get directly the information from the table and the figure. For example, you use the term increase, decrease, quotation or improvement and so on. Because all of this information is actually can be directly obtained from your tables and figure. This is what we call report. Okay, discussion means you need to provide scientific reason why it increased, why it is decreased, why the percentage of improvement is low, why the percentage of improvement is high. So you must provide the reason, scientific reason. This is important because this is how we differentiate between master student, PhD, and undergraduates. Okay, that's why my what we call students, they are afraid of me because every time I viva them, I will focus on this scientific reason. Okay, if they do not able to explain why they get such results, so meaning that your knowledge as a PhD student is not there yet. Okay, you must be able to give the reasons why when you propose something, you say that in your methodology it has been proven theoretically that when you add one new parameter, it can boost or it can increase the performance. Now, when you give the result, it seems that it is matched with your claim. But now you need to provide lah. Okay, so provide scientific. Why the results can obtain that such result. Okay, then you must relate back to your research gap. Whatever is, you must relate. The discussion must focus toward your research gap, and you must compare and make sure that what is the difference between your, when you compare, you must make sure that the beauty or the advantage of your techniques as compared to the state-of-the-art methods. Why your techniques increase the performance? There must be a reason, so you must discuss that. Why? Which part? Okay, which part help your techniques to improve the techniques as compared to other methods? Okay, and then lastly, do the findings answer your research objective? If yes, blah blah blah. If not, blah blah. Okay, and then for me, if not answer the research objective, try to revise your research objective. Make sure whatever your result and discussion answer your research objective. Otherwise, you please revise your research objective. There's one research objective which is included in chapter 1. I asked my student to write the chapter 1 at the end of the thesis writing process. I want them to focus on chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 4 first, because if they have what we call the opposite results or discussion, then they can revise their research objective. So that why for me, chapter 1 and chapter 5 will be the last two chapters to be written. Okay, and then you must conclude your discussion. Either your research gap and answer has been addressed or answered. Okay. Okay, this is example discussion. So this is report. From figure blah blah, you can see that image has been enhanced. Okay, so this also report because we can see that the percentage, because all of these figures, whatever, can be directly what we call obtained from the table and also from the figure. So this is what we call a report. Your report the qualitative result because based on the observation, based on the image. Your report the quantitative analysis based on what we call the tables. Okay, so how many percentage of improvement and so on. So this is what we call the information that can directly get from your tables or your diagram. Okay, this is discussion. Discussion are the result, providing technical reason. Okay, Moreover, both of area of the chromatic and the total chromatic area of these two clusters are larger. Okay, why? There is a decrement in average distance. So why they have what we call the total chromatin? For example, okay, spread of data for the measurement of the chromatic area is more dispersed for the low seal and high seal. This is, we can see that low seal and high seal more dispersed as compared to NILM. Why? Because there is an average distance between the nearest blah blah blah. Okay, it's also here in terms of chromatic shape, chromatin density is generally a shape with the asymmetric values comparing to the this is the technical area, technical reason. Comparing to the chromatic of NILM, chromatids of LSIL and HIL are more round in shape since the eccentricity value present a decreasing trend when the cell progresses from normal to positive. So this is technical reason why you get such results. Okay, so you must able to, because this information is actually from literature review. This is from your results. So you combine them together, you relate back. Okay, so that's what we call your discussion must support your results. Okay, this is another discussion. The last discussion, you conclude your discussion to answer your research gap and objective. Okay, so meaning that you want to criteria to be observed. So that's why at the end of the day, you see, you conclude that the chromatin can classify between normal, low grade, and high grade by having these all features. Similar to whatever your techniques, this is your suggestion technique. Two existing system. So this is your system. You compare. You can see that there are some of them is similar and some of them are what we call different. Okay, so this is how you end up your discussion. You conclude your discussion to answer your research gap and your idea. It shows that your chromatin can be used to differentiate between these three cells, and also you can see that your chromatin also can be used. Chromatin also can be used by the model can be used in order to compare with the existing model. So this is how you conclude your discussion, meaning that when I have these two, what we call a table, so I know that the research gap and the objective have been achieved. Okay. Okay, you can have my slides later, so you can see how the flow. Then if you have a problem, then you can email me. Okay. Common mistake for the PhD student: no or less technical discussion. Very important to prove your capability as PhD student. Okay. Mistake in providing technical justification. For example, high PNSR shows good contract and sound performance. PNSR actually is not used for the good contract and sound performance. PNSR is used to compare between the, this is what we call the, it's to show that PSNR is not necessarily a good qualitative analysis to be used for the contract enhancement performance, but students always use PSNR for this one. So this is my example of using technical justification, meaning that you use inappropriate what we call measurement in order to prove something. Okay, so this is just for example. If you are in my area, then you know what does I mean. If not, then you just. But the point is mistake in providing technical justification. Okay, try to use. That's why in the methodology section, you must explain the analysis, the measurement that you use, because why did you use measurement? Why you choose the measurement to be used in your research and so on? There must be a reason. Okay, and then the last common mistake is you fail to conclude your discussion. You discuss, then you make it hang. So the reader will, so what? So if there is still a so what at the end of the day, so meaning that your discussion, your research discussion is not complete yet. So you must make sure that you conclude your discussion. You conclude everything, meaning that your research research gap and also your objective has been answered by after you presenting your results and discussion. If there is so what, then meaning that so what lah, your grade also is so what lah. Okay, so I hope you understand one. Okay, so do we need to discuss the limitation of the proposed research? Yes, As I mentioned to you, to become a good researcher, you have to know your limitation, but not in detail. 20%, 10%, 20% is enough. Not this limitation 80%, advantage 20%. No, more on the advantage, but limitation still is good to be discussed, because it will relate with your future works later in your chapter 5. So try to discuss your limitation of your proposed research. Not that detailed, but it's good to have, nice to have. If you can, if you want to present, it's okay. But for me, it's nice to have lah. Okay. Conclusion. So, kemudian summarize your research from problematic research gap until result and discussion. Okay, summarize everything. My suggestion: one specific paragraph for one research objective. For example, you want to have, the problem is people do not use. I give you an example for the conclusion. How do you want to conclude everything? Okay. Okay, so let's say by research gap, people use other criteria to evaluate or to differentiate between normal, low grade, and high grade. People do not use chromatin irregularity, for example, chromatin criteria. So this research proposed of what we call investigating chromatin criteria in order to evaluate, to differentiate between normal, low grade, and high grade. So this study introduced a new method called blah blah blah, where the method used blah 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 blah. In brief, after testing with 200 images, it showed that the proposed method outperformed other state-of-the-art methods, where it can clearly highlight the chromatin, and the chromatin can be used to clearly what we call, the expert agree that the chromatin can be used to differentiate between normal, high grade, low grade, and high grade. So it seems that it showed that the research gap and also objective number 1 has been achieved. So that's for paragraph number 1. Do the same for the paragraph number 2 for the second objective and the second research gap, and for the third paragraph for the third objective and also the third research gap. Okay? In each paragraph, summarize your work which has been carried out from formulating your research gap until your result and discussion, in order to achieve one specific research objective. Conclude by stating the achievement status of the research objective. Okay, and then you can have another paragraph to show that the achievement of your whole research. So it's clear that one paragraph is for one objective. So it shows that your objective number 1 has been achieved. Second paragraph show that your second objective has been achieved, and so on. Okay. Then for future work, start with explaining the limitation of your work. You can discuss limitation in chapter 4 under discussion section, then provide suggestion to overcome the limitation. So that's why I advise you to give the limitation of your work in chapter 4, because here in future work you can relate back with that limitation, and you can suggest what we call your future work. Okay. Common mistake, too lengthy. Okay, we don't want to have because you already explained everything in research, in results and discussion. So no need to repeat again the result and discussion in this what we call chapter. You only want to conclude. So what again? Highlight what are the problem statement, what are the objectives, what are the main proposed idea, what are the main results. Do your results, what we call answer your research gap, so on. That's all. Okay. In some cases, some of the students still include the research background. This is very poor conclusion. Okay. Two brief explanation about the future works. Okay. A good researcher, as I mentioned, is not only able to discuss the beauty of the research, but also limitation and room of improvement. Okay. And then this is only type of references. You have the primary references, and also secondary references. Ethically, avoid of using the secondary references. Primary references is the reference that you read. You read the article, you read the proceeding. So that's what we call a primary reference. The secondary reference, that the reference cited by other reference, meaning that, let's say, I have a paper. My paper is my paper. I stated in my paper, MLP, what we call MLP, has a better performance as compared to RBF. Okay, so I cite one reference. Then you read my paper. You read my paper. You want to use the statement also, which is the MLP is better than RBF. Then you cite the reference that I cite. So this is what we call a secondary references, because you did not read that reference, so you cannot use this one as your reference. So that's what we call a secondary reference. Avoid of practicing your secondary references. If you refer to my works, if you refer to my paper, refer to my paper, not refer to the reference that I refer. Okay, and then references should be up to date. Latest 10 years from the date of your thesis submission. Thesis submission, not 10 years from your start your research. Okay, 10 years from your date of thesis submission. References must be up to date throughout the research. The latest state of the latest 5 years. Okay, so this is I think your supervisor will help you. Okay, plagiarisms is very what we call, it's very critical. So make sure that everything you must cite. Okay, so use a good references. But for me, my suggestion, if you want to do a literature review, understand the previous work, digest their works, use your own works and sentences in order for you to report and critique those works. Do not take what we call directly from the paper. Okay, so use understand, you digest, and you use your own words and sentences. Okay, to avoid plagiarism. Okay, that's all. Thank you. So,
Okay.
I should stop at 11:30, right?
Yeah. It's okay, Prof.
Okay.
Finally, we finish our webinar in this series. Okay, so thank you very much, Prof. Nur Ashidi, for a very comprehensive talk, and also very useful, I think, for all our postgraduate and also for the main supervisor and co-supervisors. Okay, so we have 5 questions, Prof. So we will spend around 10 minutes. Okay. So I start with the first question. When I can use block diagram and flowchart in the thesis?
When? Okay.
When?
Okay. Flowchart and diagram is basically you need to use it at the beginning of your methodology, because if, as I mentioned to you, if you want to introduce your proposed idea in general, so flowchart is a diagram is actually the best way, because from the flowchart, when examiner or the reader what we call visualize your flowchart and your diagram, they will know the whole idea. So that's why this is actually the function of the flowchart and also the diagram, to give the whole the whole general about your research. So for me, the flowcharts and also the diagram should be used at the beginning of the methodology, while your pseudocode, your algorithm step by step, your equation must be in what we call when you detail out the methodology stage by stage. Okay.
Okay, so thank you, Prof. We go for the second question. I would like to ask about analysis, comparison, validation, evaluation with example to be clear.
Again?
This is my student, actually, my PhD student, asked about this question. She wants to know more detail about analysis, comparison, validation, and evaluation, whether it should be supported by the example.
Okay. As I mentioned, okay. Now, when you have one techniques, Okay, you have a technique now. You have a technique now. You introduce a new technique. You want to show that your techniques is good. As I mentioned to you, you must you have to know what are the you must compare with others. You must compare with others. So the evaluation must be thoroughly done with what we call the state of the art methods to show that whatever that improvement that you propose, you introduce is actually works. Okay, and then you as I mentioned in chapter 3, when you want to propose a new techniques, you must support your techniques with a theoretical argument. Okay, so there must be a reason theoretically why did you propose that idea. Okay, why did you include or you exclude or you include equation or you include another stage or whatever. So there must be a reason, theoretical reason behind that. So now when you move to chapter 4, chapter 4, when you have the result, which your result is actually what we call good and also positive, then you must relate back to whatever that theory that you mentioned in chapter 3. So you must combine the ideas or the reason of the theory that you propose in chapter 3 together with your results that you get from the chapter 4. You combine them together and it becomes a very good, it can support actually whatever that the result that you obtain. Okay, so whatever is it's good that it's good if you can have references in chapter 4 to what we call to support whatever that result that you have, because sometimes this one is more on the modification. Let's say you modify technique, you want technique A and technique B, so you want to integrate technique A to technique B because some of the elements in technique A can work in the technique B, so you bring them together. So meaning that when you have what we call in chapter 4, when you have the results, you get a good results after you modify the techniques of B by integrating A into B, then you can get that the results you obtain is better. So you can see that that's why when you the effect of the method A to method B has successfully increased the performance of the method B. So it's good to, that's what we call the skill or the knowledge that need by a PhD student in order to what we call relate together the theory side, the review element, the theory elements, the results that obtained, and the analysis that used or whatever. So they must be together.
Okay, thank you, Prof, for the very detailed and comprehensive answer. So we go for the question number 3. Prof mentioned about making table in chapter 2 to clearly see the report and critiques of previous studies.
Okay.
Do we need to do this table for each subtopic in chapter 2?
Okay. Okay. For me, if you do the comparison, for example, let's say in chapter 4, you compare with what we call the techniques that you have 10 techniques to be compared with. So it's good if you can have the comparison at chapter 2, because when these 10 techniques you compare in chapter 2, the reader or the examiner can have the what we call the initial picture about those techniques. What are the advantages and disadvantages? So when you have a chapter 4, when you have the results and discussion after you compare blah blah blah, then what you can do is you can have another what we call another table that you can compare your proposed and what we call the techniques that have been reviewed in chapter 2. So for me, for the table, if you have the comparison performance between the methods that you compare, for me is better for you to have that table in chapter 2. If what we call the method is not it's not fall within the main of your subtopic, so no need to have that tables. Only the table is if for the techniques that fall into your what we call subtopics that relevant to your relevant to your research. If the method is not relevant, I think just enough with the text. No need for the what we call the comparison, because the comparison is actually to give the better ideas for the clearer idea for the examiner to know the problems, and at the end of the day they can observe, okay, this is the proposed method, this is the advantages, and they your techniques has addressed the problems of the previous one. So it's make what we call easy for the what we call the examiners to clearly differentiate the advantages of your techniques as compared to others. So for my answer, if it's related to your keywords, okay, to your subtopics of your research, then please have the comparison table. If not, then just enough for the text when you review. Okay.
Okay, Prof, next question. Is it permissible to use example for explanation in chapter research methodology?
Okay. If you want to, okay, I know. Okay, when you have, let's say, you want to have a clearer picture about the whole system. Let's say your whole system have a, let's say, 10 stages. 10 stages meaning that it's a many stages, right? So if you only have the explanation, so it might what we call the reader quite confused, or the examiner will confuse. You think so you want to use an example. You can have the example, but please use the what we call the general example, not the example, or what we call, not use the sample that you want to what we call presented in chapter 4. Okay, let's say although I have a techniques what we call to focus on the cervical cancer, so I might use the simulation image. Okay, simulation image. So I use that simulation image in order to explain clearly what happened after this stage, what happened to the next stage. So in that case, I'm not using the data that I want to present in chapter 4. So you can have that, but some of the examiners actually is not agree with this idea. For them, this is a part of methodology. But for me, if your explanation by using the simulated example, it can help me to what we call understand more about your techniques or methodology. So I appreciate it very much. So for me, it's not a what we call a big deal. If no, for me, if you think that explanation can give more what we call understanding for the reader and for the examiner, so just put it as an example, but use the simulated one, not the real case one. Okay.
Okay. Next question. Thank you, Prof. Next question. Do we need to compare our technique method with other journal which are not same method use?
That's why, okay, this is very interesting. That's why there must be a reason in every decision that you make. Okay, if you think that I want to compare with technique A, why you want to compare with technique A? So for me, whatever that technique you want to compare, they must fall within the same family. Meaning that if they are use the same concept, then it is appropriate for you, and actually you must compare with that methods, because they fall in the what we call the same family. Let's say you have another technique which is outside the family, outside your scope lah. But the techniques actually give a very good or excellent what we call performance, and you see that your technique can overcome or outperform that techniques. So you can use that techniques, but you need to what we call give a reason why you choose that technique. Although the technique is out of the family or out of the class or whatever, but because it has shown that this is the best techniques until now, for example, the current best technique. So that's why the study also compare with that methods. So the methods to be chosen by you in order to do the comparison, there must be a reason behind it. If you have the reason, then I think there will be no issues in the from the examiners. But whatever is, if you have the reasons and you know your decision, you support your decision by a concrete reason and so on. So I think there is, you will not, you close the room for the what we call for the examiner to ask you any questions. So for me, whatever is, if you have the valid reason, then it should be okay.
Okay, Prof. This is the final question for this session.
Okay.
Can I use both tables and figures at the same time for comparing the results with previous work?
Okay, do not repeat. Okay, so if table is if you already have comparison in table form, so use a table form. If you want to use a what we call a graph, then use a graph. So for me, if you want to have the comparison, if you want to have the pattern to show the difference in the pattern of a graph, then graph is the best choice lah. If you want to only compare the highest accuracy, I think the table is the best choice. Okay, so it depends on once again, it depends on the selection of your direction. Okay, so please only choose either one, not what we call repeat the same what we call presentation of result with a different punya materials. Okay.
Okay, so Prof, I think that's all. 6 questions that have been answered clearly by Prof. Nur Ashidi.
Okay.
So on behalf of the organizer, Jawatankuasa Kecil Ijazah Tinggi School of Computer and Communication Engineering, would like to thank Professor IR Dr. Nur Ashidi for a very thoughtful and also useful webinar sharing this time. So this is our second part, and in fact we have completed all, Prof?
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much. And I hope that all participants can fill up the attendance actually that is given by our secretariat, Dr. Ismahayati. And before we end, please on all your cameras for the photo session. We would like to have a photo session. Can all participants, before we end our webinar today? Okay. Prof, can start sharing?
Yes.
Stop sharing. Okay, Prof. Hey, Prof. Long time no see.
See. Botak. Ada.
Tak apa, Prof, tak apa.
Okay.
Ada di mana tu? Main office
Main office.
Okay. Okay. Ni. Apa? Dr. Isma. Okay, ready dah? Dr. Isma akan ambil gambar.
Ya.
Boleh on camera record.
Okay. Dan agak dulu kecil.